To kill
Definitely,
Dodi?
they been murdered. Dodi and Diana been murdered, definitely. I am the father who knows everything.
So, something surprising appears to be coming to light about Princess Diana, as her former chauffeur has reportedly opened up about the final days of her life. For years, people have wondered what Diana was really going through behind the scenes and what those closest to her may have noticed before her tragic death.
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
But what does her former chauffeur say about those final days? And are there details about Diana's last moments that the public never fully understood? So, what do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more royal stories and updates. Princess Diana's last days. So, start from where the story begins. Few royal tragedies have touched people's hearts and stayed in their minds quite like the death of Princess Diana. Even after all these years, the events surrounding her final days still leave people shocked and wondering what really happened. Just days before her death, Diana arrived in Paris with her boyfriend, Dodi Al-Fayed, after spending about 10 days aboard his father's luxury yacht in Sardinia. It was the summer of 1997, and Diana was hoping to enjoy some private time away from the pressure that had followed her for years. But there was something else on her mind. Diana was planning to return to London the following day because she wanted to reunite with her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, after their summer holiday. At the time, Diana and Dodi were in a relationship that attracted enormous public attention. Over the years, many people came to describe it as one of Diana's final major romances. The two appeared to be enjoying their time together, but their trip was far from peaceful. And this is where things suddenly took a tragic turn. Diana and Dodi had originally planned to have dinner in Paris. However, the huge crowd of photographers following them made those plans difficult. Instead, they decided to have a private meal at the Ritz Hotel, which was owned by Dodi's family. Later that night, shortly after midnight, the couple left the hotel and headed toward Dodi's apartment. Their security team reportedly used a different car as a decoy in an attempt to confuse the photographers who were waiting outside. But the attempt to escape the photographers ended in disaster. The Mercedes carrying Diana, Dodi, and their driver, Henri Paul, entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at high speed. The car crashed, killing Dodi and Henri Paul at the scene. Diana was still alive after the collision. She was conscious for a time, but her condition quickly became critical. She suffered a cardiac arrest and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors and surgeons fought to save her life. Sadly, their efforts were unsuccessful. Princess Diana was declared dead at the age of just 36, and of course, the shock that followed was enormous. Millions of people around the world mourned her death, while questions about what had really happened that night began almost immediately. As the days and years passed, different theories started to spread. Some people questioned the official explanation of the crash, while others believed there might have been more to the story. Because of those questions, Britain eventually launched a major investigation known as Operation Paget in 2004. The investigation examined many of the claims and conspiracy theories surrounding Diana's death. So, what did the investigations actually find? British and French authorities looked closely at the crash, the driver, the photographers, the vehicle, and the events that happened that night. While the investigations largely supported the basic account of what happened, they also revealed several important details. In 1999, French authorities concluded that Henri Paul, the driver, was mainly responsible for the crash. Paul was the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel, and investigators found that he had been drinking before getting behind the wheel. He was also driving at a very high speed as the car moved through the streets of Paris. According to the investigation, Paul was trying to get away from the photographers who were following the vehicle. The combination of his alcohol level, the speed of the car, and the attempt to escape the pursuing photographers created an extremely dangerous situation. However, the story did not end there. French investigators did not find the photographers guilty of manslaughter. They determined that the photographers were not close enough to the actual crash to be held responsible for causing the deaths. But years later, a British inquest reached a different conclusion. In 2008, a British jury found that Diana and Dodi were unlawfully killed as a result of the reckless driving of Henri Paul and the pursuing paparazzi. The jury believed that the aggressive pursuit by photographers played a role in the chain of events that eventually led to the crash. What did Diana believe about the people around her? And why did she feel she could no longer trust them? Let's take a closer look. The truth behind Princess Diana's Panorama interview. So, this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. In November 1995, just 2 years before her tragic death, Princess Diana sat down for what would become one of the most unforgettable television interviews of her life. She spoke with journalist Martin Bashir on Panorama, the BBC's major current affairs program. And what happened during that interview shocked the world. Diana spoke openly about the problems in her marriage to Prince Charles. She talked about the breakdown of their relationship and admitted that both she and Charles had been involved in affairs. For the first time, millions of people heard Diana speak so openly about what had been happening inside her marriage. The reaction was enormous. The interview caused a major shock within the royal family. Not long afterward, Queen Elizabeth reportedly urged Diana and Charles, who had already been separated since 1992, to finally divorce. Then came another major change in Diana's life. After the divorce, Diana lost the title Her Royal Highness and also lost her official royal security protection. Her relationship with Charles had completely broken down, and the situation had become increasingly bitter. Both had been involved with other people, while damaging stories about their private lives were regularly appearing in the media. But there was one question that would become increasingly important years later. How did Martin Bashir, who was still a relatively unknown journalist at the time, manage to get Diana to agree to such a huge interview? Well, this is where the story becomes much more disturbing. Years after the interview, it was revealed that Bashir had used highly questionable methods to gain the trust of Diana and her brother, Earl Spencer, a BBC graphic designer. Later revealed that Bashir had asked him to create fake bank statements. These documents were made to look as though people connected to Earl Spencer had been receiving money in exchange for selling private stories about Diana to a British newspaper. Bashir allegedly used these fake documents to convince Earl Spencer that people close to Diana could not be trusted. Earl Spencer believed what he was shown, and this helped Bashir gain his confidence. And then something even more important happened. Earl Spencer introduced Bashir to Diana. When Diana was shown the supposed evidence, she reportedly became convinced that people around her were betraying her. She was made to believe that powerful people were watching her and secretly passing information about her private life to the media. And this is where the story gets even more complicated. In the documentary Diana, The Ultimate Truth, investigative journalist Mark Williams Thomas spoke with Tom Mangold, a longtime Panorama reporter who had already become suspicious about Bashir's methods. Mangold explained that a colleague had privately told him about the fake documents. According to Mangold, the BBC graphics artist Matt Weisler told him that Bashir had ordered him to forge 2 bank statements. Mangold said he raised his concerns with the program's editor, but his warnings were ignored. Then, just 5 months after Diana's explosive interview aired, the Mail on Sunday reported on the forgery. But by then, it was already too late. The interview had become a worldwide sensation. Diana's revelations had been watched and discussed by millions of people, and the reputation of the royal family had taken a serious blow. What really happened to Princess Diana in the final moments before the crash? What did investigators discover when they examined Diana's wrecked Mercedes? Let's find out. The chilling details behind the Paris crash. So, this is where the story takes another turn. In a gripping documentary, investigator Mark Williams Thomas went back over the events surrounding Princess Diana's final days in Paris in August 1997. Instead of simply repeating the familiar story, he retraced Diana's movements and spoke to witnesses who had never publicly shared what they knew. He also consulted medical and forensic experts who had been closely connected to the official investigation into the crash. One of the most important people featured in the documentary was Tom Treasure, a cardiothoracic surgeon who studied Diana's injuries in great detail. His account gives a clearer picture of what happened in those crucial moments immediately after the crash. According to Treasure, when Diana was pulled from the wrecked Mercedes, she was still alive and conscious. But she was in extremely serious condition. She was showing signs of internal bleeding. Her pulse was racing, and her blood pressure was dangerously low. And then came one of the most heartbreaking details. Treasure said Diana was clearly in pain. He used a resuscitator to help her breathe, and she reacted by moving her arm. For a brief moment, she appeared to become a little more conscious, but she never spoke. Treasure also pointed to another major factor. Diana was not wearing a seatbelt, and she had been sitting sideways in the vehicle when the crash happened. According to his explanation, that unusual position contributed to a rare and extremely serious injury to her heart. And this is where the story becomes especially difficult to think about. Treasure suggested that if her particular injury had been recognized and treated more quickly, there might have been a chance of saving her. In other words, the crash was not necessarily instantly fatal. The injuries were devastating, but there may have been a possibility of survival. In 2008, a British inquest concluded that the deaths of Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed were the result of the grossly negligent driving of Henri Paul, the driver of the Mercedes, as well as the actions of the paparazzi who were chasing the car. French investigators had also determined that Paul, who worked as the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel, had alcohol and other substances in his system when he drove the car. However, there was still plenty of debate surrounding exactly what happened. To understand that part of the story, Williams Thomas interviewed Martin Monti, a leading officer involved in the French investigation. Monti described the moments just before the crash and explained that the Mercedes had collided with another vehicle shortly before entering the Pont de l'Alba tunnel. That first impact caused the Mercedes to lose control. The car swerved, struck a curb, and then spun across the tunnel before smashing into the 13th pillar. But there was another issue that continued to fuel suspicion for years: Henri Paul's blood test results. Some people claimed his alcohol levels had been wrongly reported or even deliberately changed. These claims became part of a much larger collection of conspiracy theories surrounding Diana's death. Monti addressed those claims directly. She explained that blood samples were taken shortly after the crash and again during Paul's autopsy. Both sets of tests showed the presence of alcohol and other substances, including prescription medication. At the same time, Monti made an important distinction. She explained that Paul had alcohol in his system, but that did not necessarily mean he was completely drunk. So, was Princess Diana really pregnant with Dodi Al-Fayed's child when she died? What evidence actually exists behind the shocking claim? Let's take a closer look. Princess Diana's pregnancy mystery. So, according to Mohammed Al-Fayed, Princess Diana's death was not a simple accident. He believed there was something much darker behind it. Al-Fayed, whose son Dodi was romantically involved with Diana at the time of her death, spent years arguing that the crash in Paris was part of a planned conspiracy. But to understand where this theory came from, we have to go back several years. Dodi Al-Fayed and Princess Diana were not complete strangers before their famous relationship. They had actually crossed paths much earlier, reportedly meeting at a polo match in 1986. The event involved Dodi's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, as well as Diana's then-husband, Prince Charles. At the time, however, there was nothing to suggest that Diana and Dodi would one day become romantically involved. Fast forward to the summer of 1997, and everything had changed. Diana and Dodi had started spending a great deal of time together. Their relationship quickly became a major topic in the newspapers, especially because Diana was one of the most famous women in the world. Photographers followed the couple everywhere, and their holiday together in France attracted enormous attention. And this is where one of the biggest conspiracy theories surrounding Diana's death began to grow. Mohammed Al-Fayed claimed that Diana had become pregnant with Dodi's child. He believed that this pregnancy created a serious problem for the British establishment. In his view, the idea of an Egyptian Muslim potentially becoming the stepfather of the future King of England was something powerful people would never accept. From there, Al-Fayed developed the theory that Diana and Dodi had been targeted and that their deaths were deliberately arranged to prevent such a relationship from becoming a reality. However, there is an important point to remember here. These were Al-Fayed's claims, not established facts. In the weeks before Diana's death, rumors about a possible pregnancy had already begun circulating. During her holiday in France, some reports suggested that Diana might have been preparing to reveal a major surprise. Her comments were sometimes interpreted as hints that something important was about to happen. Naturally, the tabloids picked up on the story. Soon, speculation about a possible pregnancy began spreading quickly. The idea was especially powerful because Diana's relationship with Dodi was already attracting huge public attention. For many people, the possibility of a pregnancy seemed like it could explain why the couple had become such a focus of the media. But when the claims were examined more closely, the evidence simply wasn't there. People close to Diana rejected the pregnancy rumors. More importantly, her post-mortem examination found no evidence that she was pregnant. Blood tests also showed no signs of pregnancy. There were other details that made the pregnancy theory even harder to support. People who knew Diana closely said she had a regular menstrual cycle and used contraception. They also said she had never told them that she believed she was pregnant. So, while the story may sound dramatic, there is no solid evidence showing that Diana was expecting Dodi's child when she died, and that distinction matters. The pregnancy claim became an important part of Mohammed Al-Fayed's larger theory about Diana's death, but it was never proven. Official investigations did not establish that Diana was pregnant, nor did they confirm that her death was caused by a conspiracy connected to a supposed pregnancy. Still, the story did not end there. Over the years, several other theories began circulating about what really happened inside the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris that night. Some focused on the driver, others on the paparazzi, and some went much further, suggesting that powerful people had secretly arranged the crash. What did Diana write in the chilling letter she reportedly gave to her butler? Could Diana's own words have predicted the tragic crash that took her life? Let's find out. Princess Diana's surprising letter. The belief that Princess Diana may have feared for her life has been one of the biggest reasons so many conspiracy theories have continued to surround her tragic death. Even decades later, people still look back at the final months of her life and wonder whether she knew something was seriously wrong. At the center of many of these theories is a letter Diana reportedly wrote before her death. The letter was revealed years later by her former butler, Paul Burrell. According to Burrell, Diana had personally given him the letter and asked him to keep it somewhere safe. And what she wrote in that letter is what really caught people's attention. Diana reportedly described herself as feeling extremely vulnerable. She also wrote about needing support during what she called the most dangerous period of her life. Those words alone were troubling enough. But one particular part of the letter made the story even more disturbing. In the note, Diana reportedly claimed that someone was planning to cause an accident involving her car. She believed the plan could involve making her brakes fail, which would then result in a serious crash and potentially a fatal head injury. The message reportedly said that this period of her life was the most dangerous and suggested that someone, whose name was apparently removed from the document, was planning an accident involving her car. Diana specifically mentioned brake failure and serious head injuries. But then the letter took an even more shocking turn. Diana reportedly suggested that the reason behind this supposed plan was to remove her from the picture and create an opportunity for Prince Charles to marry someone else. Looking back today, the letter can certainly feel unsettling. It is especially striking because Diana had already experienced problems that made her suspicious about her safety. She had reportedly raised concerns about issues involving her car, and those worries appear to have stayed on her mind. And there was another event that may have made her fears even stronger. Around that period, Diana's bodyguard had died in a car crash. Reports have suggested that Diana questioned whether his death was simply an accident. Whether those suspicions were justified or not, an event like that could understandably make someone feel even more worried about their own safety. So, it is important to separate what Diana feared from what investigators actually established. In fact, official investigations into Diana's death did not establish the kind of royal assassination plot suggested by conspiracy theories. What were the paparazzi doing in the moments before Princess Diana's crash? Did they really play a role in Princess Diana's tragic death? Let's find out. The paparazzi theory. So, for many years, photographers have been blamed for Princess Diana's tragic death, and even today, this theory is still widely discussed. The idea became popular because it connected with a much bigger problem that had followed Diana for years: the constant and often aggressive attention from the media. Diana was surrounded by photographers almost everywhere she went. The endless cameras, flashes, and reporters often made her life extremely difficult. And over time, many people began to wonder whether this constant pressure from the press had gone too far. But here's where things get complicated. There are several different versions of the theory about the paparazzi's role in Diana's death. One version claims that the photographers deliberately chased her Mercedes through the streets of Paris, putting so much pressure on the driver that he eventually lost control and crashed.
Another version is a little different. It suggests that the photographers may not have directly caused the crash, but their behavior created a dangerous situation. Their decision to chase the car at high speed may have added even more pressure to an already risky situation. Then there is a third version. This one suggests that the
Paparazzi may have unintentionally created the circumstances that led to the crash, while other people later took advantage of the situation to carry out a plan to kill those inside the car. However, when investigators looked closely at what happened that night, they came to a very different conclusion. The official investigations found that photographers had indeed followed Diana's car, but they were not working together as one organized group. Instead, they were competing with one another, with each photographer trying to get the best possible picture of Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed. And there's another important detail here. The photographers came from different companies and had different jobs. Some were professional photojournalists, while others were freelance photographers who were simply trying to get exclusive pictures. After the crash, several photographers continued taking pictures at the scene. This became especially controversial because witnesses reportedly said Diana was still alive at the time. As a result, 10 photographers who were present at the crash were arrested by French authorities. Their involvement immediately attracted huge attention and only added to the suspicion surrounding the tragedy. But despite all the questions, the investigation continued. Investigators confirmed that the Mercedes was traveling at a very high speed while trying to get away from the photographers. That fact helped fuel the argument that the paparazzi had contributed to the dangerous situation. Still, after a detailed investigation known as Operation Paget, authorities concluded that the photographers were not part of a criminal conspiracy to kill Diana. So, what do you think about the shocking revelation about Princess Diana's former chauffeur? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.